Howdy folks, and welcome to Arsenalen, the Swedish tank museum, located around about an hour and a half's drive outside of Stockholm in surprisingly sunny Sweden, although unsurprisingly, at this time of year, quite cold. I was invited along to the museum as a guest of Wargaming, along with other community contributors, Circumflexers and Sir Fosh, because Wargaming were unveiling a gaming centre which they've installed into the upper floor of the museum, where you can just sit down, chill out, do a jigsaw puzzle, watch a video, play World of Tanks PC or World of Tanks Blitz on the PCs and tablets that have been provided for the purpose. On a typical day, the museum gets anything between 2 and 20 visitors, but today they had 1,600. Let me just tell you, the queue for the toilets was spectacular. And I think I must have met, said hello to, posed for a picture with, and signed autographs for all 1,600 of them. This is what the queue looked like shortly before the museum opened up at 10 AM.
We still have...
Wow. So many Scandinavians.
Oh, hey. Hello.
There's thousands of you. Wow.
There you are.
So many Scandinavians. Thank you. How you doing? Jesus, look at the queue. Where are you guys from?
From here.
You're from Sweden?
Yeah, but we are coming from Lithuania.
What? I don't even know where that is. There's people here from Finland, Norway, Denmark, just Scandinavians everywhere. Holy shit, how you doing? Look at that crowd. Fucking hell. And they're not even open. You crazy people.
So you made it.
Oh, I made it. Yeah, I made it this time. Love the jacket. Very nice. Wow. Where are you guys from?
Sweden.
You're from Sweden. That's as close as geographical location as I need. You just name the place in Sweden. I don't know. It's somewhere in Sweden.
Sweden.
Östersund, Åre, maybe, you know, down here.
It's like in the middle.
I know Stockholm. Tromsø. No, wait, that's Norway. There you go. I'm lost already. Where you guys come from?
Värnamo.
That's in Sweden, yeah?
Yeah.
That's as close as I need to know. Seriously, I know Stockholm and that's it.
Ah.
I said, oh, no, I know Tromsø as well. No, wait, that's Norway. Oh, never mind.
Well, yeah.
What can I say? I'm crap. I'm famous for it. How you doing? Look at the queue. The guys over there have been here for 2 hours. That's just crazy talk. Excuse me, coming through. Let's get the guys at the front of the queue. We meet again. Wow, that's bright. So how long have you guys been here?
2 hours.
That's just crazy talk. It's going to be worth it though. It's great in there. Have you been here before?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Right, well, it's probably pretty much exactly the same except for all the wargaming stuff. Victor Kisley's there. He's come casual, jeans and sweater, so, you know.
Okay.
Yes. And I think he's going to be playing World of Tanks upstairs. We were just having a game in the Conqueror gun carriage. I say game, Sircon was there texting, and then every 30 seconds he'd just do this. And then he had to go and take a phone call, so I took over, and I did that. And I missed the Type 5 Heavy by 10 metres and did 800 damage. See that? Skill. Hey, here's the Finnish contingent. How you doing?
Where did you leave Rita?
Where did I meet Rita?
No, where did
Oh, where did I leave her? She's driving tanks for the weekend. She's in Britain driving. She's supposed to be learning how to drive cars, but she keeps going to this army base where there's a soldier who's going to teach her how to drive. But then she keeps getting into the tanks instead. But I figure it's all right. We'll just buy her a Volvo, and it's the same thing. Yeah? Makes sense to me. Okay, who here is not from Sweden?
Me.
Ah, there we go. Where are you from?
Czech Republic.
The Czech Republic. Holy shit! You didn't come here just for this, did you?
I don't know. I live.
Oh, you live here. Okay, fair enough. We were in a sports bar last night because it's typical. You come to Sweden, and the wargaming people take you to an American sports bar, but they were showing hockey, and American, Canadian, one guy from the Czech Republic playing hockey in the NHL. I was like, what? I didn't know hockey was a thing in the Czech Republic, but apparently so. Yeah. Well, there was a couple of Russian guys on the teams as well. Of course, there's what's his name? Ilya Briskalov, the guy who says, he's on me game, why you have to be mad? Obviously he plays as well. So who else is not from Sweden? I know you're from Sweden.
Yes.
I can tell.
Yes. I want to thank you for the T34. You gave me once in a...
Did you win something?
I did.
Awesome.
The secret password was GNOME, of course.
Of course it was.
I want to thank you for that. Thank you, Jingles.
You're incredibly welcome.
I'm from your neck of the woods.
That's all right, we won't hold it against you.
But I've lived here 16
Two
years.
guys from Croatia.
From Croatia?
Yeah.
Awesome. How you doing? Did you come here just for this?
No, we live in Stockholm, but
Ah, you live in Stockholm. Right, well, we've got a guy over there from the Czech Republic. It's mostly Scandinavians here, obviously. Gee,
Can I take selfie with you?
Of course you can.
Come here, my friend.
it's a 3 seconds delay though. Thank you.
No problem. Right, Jesus. The last time I saw so many Scandinavians in one place, it was the Battle of Gothenburg. Hello, Norway.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Is this the salt mines?
This is the salt mines. They actually have a salt mine in Poland.
Nice.
I don't know if you've seen it. They've built a bar and a restaurant, everything made out of salt downstairs in the mine. I will have to invade.
Jingles.
It's Poland. They're used to being invaded.
Jingles.
You know, they're very hospitable people. Yes.
Everybody in Norway loves UK.
Your feet are going to get cold and wet. Put your shoes back on. But yes, awesome. How are you doing? Where have you come from?
Sweden.
You're
South of Sweden.
So you only had to come from about, I don't know, 450 kilometres. That's nothing. Well, if you live in the north of Sweden, it's that far to your next door neighbour.
Yeah, 600.
600 shit, right. Check the crowd. I mean, look at this. It's just... I didn't think the car park was going to be big enough. And it isn't. And they're opening in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. As you can imagine, with that lot packed into the museum on the Saturday, there was absolutely no way I was going to get a chance to actually have a look at the museum's exhibits. But the day before, we pretty much had the museum entirely to ourselves, and so this is the kind of machinery that you can see on display at the Swedish Tank Museum. Beginning with the mighty Swedish S-Tank, as you can see here, being modelled by myself and the lovely circumflexes. It's interesting because the driver's position also has a gun sight. The S-Tank actually has two driver's positions. This is the one for going forwards, and right behind it is another driver's seat for going backwards. And that's the second driver's position right there, facing to the rear. Now, when he's not driving the tank, he's also the vehicle's radio operator. And the vehicle commander's position also has duplicate controls. So that's the gun barrel.
This is it.
Yeah, which means that the loader must be all the way back there. And this is the commander's position, which also has optics for firing the gun and a drive position for driving the tank. Actually, Jingles, there is no loader for this 105mm gun, but I didn't figure that one out until I went around the back of the tank and realised that actually there were only two hatches, one for both of the drivers and one for the commander. It only has a crew of 3. The gun, 105mm, is loaded automatically, and when it does need to reload, there are hatches at the back of the vehicle that are used to replenish the ammunition supply. Just to give you some idea of how long this 105mm gun is, how far that barrel extends in at the tank, those are the cleaning rods for the gun barrel. As you can see, of course, judging by the mud on the tracks, this is a fully operational S-Tank, and we're going to see it moving later on. And those are the hatches at the rear to give access to the ammunition stowage compartment. The S-Tank, of course, is not the only vehicle that they have at the museum. They have a very unusual T-55. First time I've ever seen a T-55 in this kind of condition. It's obviously been sectioned and cut open so that you can see what it's like inside without having to climb around inside the thing. I have to admit, it was kind of surprising because there's more space in there for the driver than I imagined there would be. Then again, it is entirely possible that a lot of the equipment has been stripped out just so that you can actually see what goes on inside the machine, and so the amount of available space inside is deceptive, and perhaps it's not actually like that on a production T55 that hasn't been stripped for display purposes. The rear of the turret, and the ultra-reliable V55 V12 38.8 litre water-cooled diesel engine. Coming around the other side of the turret, you can see the breech there of the D10T 100mm rifled gun, and there is not a lot of space inside that turret, and I actually have one of the 100mm shells for that gun, and it is some size and weight. It cannot have been easy to load that gun. And from one foreign tank, the T-55, to another, it's the British Chieftain. Not entirely sure why they have, well, you could say why they have a T-55. It's a tank museum, they have tanks, and it's a very, very fine example of the Chieftain. But it's British, it's not Swedish. That over there looks British, but is very, very Swedish. Sweden could not get enough of the Centurion, which just goes to prove that the Swedes have excellent taste, beginning with the Stridsvagn 81, which was the Mark III Centurion with a 20-pounder gun, and later versions, such as these here, the Stridsvagn 102 and 104 with a 105mm gun. These Swedish Centurions had diesel engines more suited to cold climates than the petrol-driven Rolls-Royce Meteor engines on British Centurions. They also had improved armour at the front, a redesigned gun mantlet, Swedish tracks, a Swedish transmission, and an automatic gearbox. These tanks are actually still held on the fighting strength of the Swedish army, although for mobilisation purposes only, a sort of break glass in the event of war kind of situation. It's been replaced in active military service by this beauty here, the Stridsvagn 122, known to most people as the Leopard 2A5, although, as with the Centurion, it's been upgraded and made uniquely Swedish. The arm has been beefed up all around to protect against RPGs and improvised explosive devices, and yet surprisingly it's only added 350 kilograms to the standard Leopard 2A5 weight. Next up we have a uniquely Swedish design, the Infantry Kanonwagen 91, which is a bit of a mouthful if you're British like me. It's a light tank, in service between 1976 and 2002. The 90mm gun that you can see there, despite the length of the barrel, is a low-velocity gun which fires either high-explosive or high-explosive anti-tank ammunition. Secondary weapons consist of two 7.62mm medium machine guns and two 71mm grenade launchers. It only weighs 16.3 tons and can do 65 km per hour. Armour composition remains secret to this day, but it was claimed to be able to defeat 25mm armour piercing from the front. Coming up next, one of the cutest tanks I have ever seen. This is the Stridsvagn 74, and unless I'm very much mistaken, it's appearing in World of Tanks very soon as the Swedish Tier 6 medium tank. It has a 75mm gun, and looking at the commander's machine gun on the top of the hatch there, I didn't quite know what that was. I looked at the barrel and I thought it was some kind of MG42 derivative, and then I looked at the receiver and it looks more like an American 30 cal, and that in fact is exactly what it is. It's the Carl Gustav Swedish design version of the M1919 Browning 30 caliber machine gun. As the day went on, the names of some of these Swedish machines became increasingly difficult to pronounce, such as this Panzervagns Kanonwagen M43, and right next door to it, the Luftvagns Kanonwagen M43, featuring twin Bofors 40mm anti-aircraft guns. Although, to be fair, they're almost German in that you can figure out what they're for by looking at the names. This is the Storm Artillery Wagen 43. It's the Storm Artillery Wagon, so it's an assault gun. This one appearing in World of Tanks as the Tier 4 tank destroyer. More Swedish machines that are going to be making it into World of Tanks, the Tier 5 medium, seen here, the Stridsvagn M42. Posing here next to its little brother at Tier 2, the Stridsvagn M40L, or, depending on who you ask, the L60. Looks remarkably like a Panzer II, but it's not. It's a Swedish design, produced in 1934. Sitting next to our little Tier 2 light tank, we have actually designed for the Danish army, the Panzerbill M40 4x4 armoured car. Only 3 had been delivered to the Danes in 1939 when war broke out, so Sweden confiscated the rest. The absolutely tiny Stridsvagn M37 tankette, based on a Czechoslovakian design. And finally, the Stridsvagn M38, Tier 2 light tank in World of Tanks. Oh, hang on a minute. Well, wouldn't you know it, I got it wrong. This is the Tier 2. The M40L is going to be the Tier 3. Oops. And yes, they do also have a surviving example of what's going to be in World of Tanks, the Swedish Tier 1. Here it is. It's based on a German prototype light tank design of the First World War, the LK-1. Sweden bought some parts in great secrecy and produced this, Sweden's first tank, the Stridsvagn FM-21. So that's nice. But I got very excited when I saw this in the museum. They've got a Marder too, which is surprising, but this is actually the first time I've ever seen one, and I had to go all the way to Sweden for it. And then I turned around and realised, you know, I've never actually seen a Hetzer before either. And they've got one here, of course. Look at that, just sitting there, hetzing, because that's what it does. Astounded that I've never actually seen a Hetzer before. It wasn't until I saw this thing sitting on the floor in the middle of the museum that I realised, you know, it's the first time I've ever seen one. Next to the little Goliath, radio-controlled, well, not really a tank. It was a mobile bomb, and not very good. And there, of course, the Panzer 38T, upon which the Hetzer is based. Anyway, who wants to see the S-tank in action? Yeah? It turns out a lot of people wanted to see the S-tank in action, and the museum were only too happy to oblige. Now, I was very fortunate in being able to get a hold of the drone camera footage that was being filmed as the S-tank was being put through its paces. Unfortunately, there is no sound with the drone camera footage, so sorry about that, but it is what it is. I was actually given the unenviable task of picking a member of the crowd who was going to get the chance to ride inside the S-tank as it was being put through its paces at the 2 p.m. afternoon demonstration. How do you pick somebody you know, for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity like that? And so, well, it was actually when I was at my 12 o'clock meet and greet, which was only supposed to last 2 hours, but ended up lasting the whole day, with the break to pop outside and have a look at the S-tank at 2 o'clock. But somebody suggested just throw something into the crowd and whoever grabs it is the winner. Now, it seemed like a good idea, but as I climbed on the back of one of the Centurions and grabbed a World of Tanks hat to throw over my shoulder into the crowd, I had awful visions of carnage ensuing as everybody fought to be the one to grab a hold of the hat and win the ride in the S-tank. But I needn't have worried, they were all Swedes, you know, they were very, very well behaved. Unfortunately, the stipulation was that you had to be at least 18 years of age, probably for, you know, health and safety and insurance reasons. And as luck would have it, the first person to catch the hat was 17. And he didn't lie. I gave him every opportunity. I said, how old are you? You're 18, aren't you? He went, no, I'm 17. I said, I didn't hear you. Did you say you were 18? He said, no, I'm 17. God damn you, Swedes. Learn to lie. So, unfortunately, we had to do it again. And I'll say this about the Swedes. They are big people. And I think the guy who caught the cap on the second attempt was the biggest person in the crowd. And I had a bit of a struggle fitting into the commander's hatch of the S-tank. But he was determined to get in there. And credit to him, he made it in and he made it out in one piece. And he had a fantastic time as this thing was being put through its paces for the entertainment of the crowd. Now, I have to admit, and I'm sure a lot of you are in the same position, but when I first heard of and saw the S-tank, I immediately thought tank destroyer or assault gun. And immediately upset everybody in Sweden. And for good reason. Because while turretless tanks of this type of design have traditionally been known as tank destroyers or assault guns, the S-tank was designed to fill the main battle tank role, but in a uniquely Swedish way. You see, the Swedes kind of worked the whole invading other countries thing out of their system at the time of the Vikings, and since then they've been a remarkably pleasant kind of people. And so the S-tank was needed for defensive rather than offensive purposes, and that's exactly why it was designed the way it was. It's very low profile, obviously it doesn't have a turret, and the armour is incredibly well sloped from the front, which makes it a very, very good defensive machine. It's also able to travel as quick backwards as it is forwards, which means that it can retreat while keeping the gun pointed towards the enemy. It was initially designed for a crew of 2, either one of which could drive the tank, operate the radio and fire the gun. However, there is a lot more to do with operating a tank than just driving it from A to B and firing the gun, and the kind of daily workload associated with maintaining the tank was just too much for a crew of 2, and so the second driver position facing to the rear was added. If the tank did have to reverse, the second driver would take over, and when he's not driving the tank, he operates the radio, which takes some of the workload off the commander. Probably the most interesting thing about the S-tank, however, and certainly revolutionary, is the way the gun actually works. It's completely fixed into place. It doesn't traverse from side to side, it doesn't elevate up, and it doesn't depress down. If you want to lay the gun on target, you actually have to use the suspension and the tracks. The suspension to elevate and depress the gun, and the tracks to slew it from side to side. And the museum were all too happy to demonstrate exactly how that worked. And here it is. This is the tank with the gun at maximum depression, simply by lowering the suspension at the front, and then when you want to elevate the gun to lay the gun on target, you simply raise the suspension. Now if you need to elevate the gun even further, you simply lower the suspension out the rear, as they're demonstrating right now. Simple, yet effective. Cost effective too, because turrets are expensive. They add to the weight, they add to the complexity, and they add to the height of the tank, making it a more obvious and easy target to hit. Turrets obviously have their advantages, but remember, this tank was designed for defensive warfare. Studies carried out at the end of World War II proved conclusively that the one single factor that determined who was most likely to win a tank-on-tank engagement throughout the entirety of World War II had almost very little to do with crew morale, crew training, and the relative technological superiority of the tanks involved. It all came down to who got the first shot off. The S-tank is a defensive weapon. It was almost always going to be operating from prepared defensive positions, which meant that it was almost always going to get the first shot off and would therefore almost always win in a tank-on-tank engagement. And even if it didn't get the first shot off, look at the profile of this thing from the front. Good luck with that. So, that was my visit to Arsenalen, the Swedish Tank Museum. I had an absolutely fantastic time. I was completely overwhelmed by the kindness, generosity and hospitality of the Swedish people. Also, their food is amazing. Disappointingly, the first night we were there, Wargaming took us to an American sports bar, and we had burgers, but the second night we went to a proper Swedish restaurant, and the fish in particular. Oh, wow. I'm definitely going to have to do this again. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. And I cannot recommend this museum enough, or a trip to Sweden in general. It really was a fantastic experience. As always, folks, that's it for today. Take care, and I'll catch you next time. Hi folks, and welcome to the Arsenalen Military Heritage Museum in scrap that. Keep filming. Don't worry, I'll edit that out. I nearly said Norway. We can use that as a blooper at the end. Don't worry, I'll edit that out.